have another holiday video for you guys. This time it's all about ugly Christmas sweaters. However, these ones are going to be planned. These ones have very specific designs and I kind of wanted to just make it funny. And also, the most important thing about all these sweaters is once you're done with this one holiday / one party that you're wearing this to, you can just take everything off and it'll just be your normal plain sweater. Because whenever I look at ugly Christmas sweaters, people hot glue it on or like whatever, it's just not machine washable, or you have to hand wash it, or you can't wash it at all. And to me, it just seems like a big waste of a sweater. And a lot of these sweaters I actually wear quite often, so I definitely want to keep them as plain as possible. Plus, I do use them for other DIYs as well, but of course always removable. So that's why I planned them all to be this way. But if you do want them all to be more permanent, then obviously use more, I guess, permanent or durable materials like actual fabric rather than small things like plastic ribbons like what I've got over here, and you know, all that stuff. So just make sure that you sew it on or use fabric glue instead. Other than that though, all of these have my own methods of removing everything, which I use for all of my costume-like DIYs, I guess. Hopefully you guys like these sweaters. My most favorite one has got to be the Snowman one. Before we get into these DIYs, I want you guys to comment down below and let me know what you guys are doing for the holidays, as well as what do you celebrate, because I know there's a bunch of holidays around this time. For me, it's just Christmas. Alright, so let's just get right into this. Alright, so let's start off with my all-time favorite sweater out of all three, which is the silly looking snowman design. You're going to want to start off with any plain sweater. I chose the black crew neck that I got from Walmart, but anything works. I'm using white felt, but you can use any color or type of fabric to customize this however you like. Using the felt, I'm cutting out a half oval-like shape for the snowman's body. I folded the fabric in half so it'd be as even as possible, and then whatever the shape I wanted, I kind of just kept trimming until I was happy with it. And for the head, you just need a large circle out of the same fabric. This is the silly looking snowman, so don't worry about making it a perfect circle or anything. You can dress the snowman however you like, but I wanted to keep his attire traditional with a scarf and buttons, so I'm just using some excess pattern fabric from an old scarf DIY and laying it how I want, making any trimmings as needed. I find that a scarf also helps with hiding the difference between the head and the body. Otherwise, you can kind of just cut out the head and body as a whole if you didn't want this little line separating the two. And now for the face. You can use black felt if you have it, but my goal was to reuse all the scrap fabric I had from previous DIYs, so I'm using some navy fabric from my Mojo Jojo costume scraps and cutting out oval shapes as an outline. Then with the white felt, I'm using the navy ovals as a base and cutting out two slightly smaller ovals. This is just an extra step, but I thought it added a little more detail. I cut off a bit of the oval at the top to make two separate pieces to give it an eyelid type of look. And then there's two more extra little circles for the pupils. From there, you can add the rest of his face details. So I went with a wavy mouth, a carrot nose, and a leaf for a snot-like look. And then I also used some leaves as well for the buttons. For the leaves, I'm using leaves from flowers that I used from a DIY rainbow highlighter video that I made in the past. These were just extras that I didn't have anything to do with, so I figured I'd just use it for the snowman sweater. But you can use extra fabric if you'd like instead. And then to finish off his look, I decided to add little hairs and then a branch through his head because I just thought it was plain and I thought the hairs were cute, so I didn't want to cover them up with a hat or anything. Now that I'm happy with this look, I'm attaching everything with very large simple stitches as a temporary measure. These will not hold through a lot of washes or anything like that. I went with these stitches because they're easy to remove by cutting a stitch and just pulling the thread out. As long as your material isn't delicate, when you remove everything that's stitched down, it'll look similar to how it was before. If you do not like stitching, you can use double-sided tape for a temporary option as well, but I wanted the sweater to last through a few wears and a long night, so I opted for stitches instead to help hold everything together. You can combine the two if it makes it easier to stitch. And of course, if you want this to be a permanent thing, just use a more secure stitch or fabric glue and make sure everything is washable. So that means none of this double-sided tape, paper branch, or foam nose nonsense. Just make sure everything is fabric. However, after everything is as secure as you'd like it, then you're pretty much done. You can wear the sweater out whenever you want. Next up is a couple sweater, which is perfect for if you're looking to match with your significant other or best friend. You'll need two similar sweaters. I went with two gray ones that I had lying around in my closet. However, if you can find two that are the exact same shade, that would match a lot better. Using brown felt, I'm drawing out a sketch of two gingerbread people to cut out. I used my phone to look for a reference photo for two kissing, but you can have them holding hands or doing some other action instead. And then when you're done, you can just take a pair of scissors and cut them out. Now flip the felt over to hide the pen markings, and then using white acrylic paint, I'm drawing out some details. I decided to put my spin on these characters and change them up a little bit, like adding details to the dress and changing the hair. Painting on felt can also be kind of challenging, especially if you're using a small brush and you're trying to be as precise as possible, so my advice would probably be to just get a lot of paint on your paintbrush and just go in on it, or else it's just not going to be as crisp of lines as you'd like. And when you're done painting, just leave it on the side to dry. Now back to the sweaters. I wanted this to be a couple sweater, so I'm going to be using some scrap fabric from a previous video again and cutting out a giant heart for the gingerbread people to stand in. I cut it in half because I wanted one half to be on each sweater. Also, if you recognize this fabric, comment down below where you remember seeing it. But anyways, to attach everything for the sweater, I'm going to be using some double-sided tape for both. And if I were to go back, I'd probably move the heart less off to the side and more to the middle so it'd be more visible when worn, because bodies aren't flat and I didn't take that into account, so they tend to be less visible if you put it too off to the side. And if your gingerbread people are dry, attach them in the same way using double-sided tape. But I mean, if you do want this to last longer, like the sweater that I showed you guys before with the snowman, then use stitches instead. This is totally up to you depending on what you need these sweaters for. And if you or your friends and significant other are totally different heights, you might want to take this into account as for how high you want to put these gingerbread on your sweaters, because you do want them to match up. And then for the final decorations, just so that this sweater isn't completely plain except for whatever is on the side, I decided to add some hearts, kind of like a string or garland, just for some extra decor. And then I did find that this did not look very holiday or Christmassy like, so I did go in with some green ribbons and attach them between the hearts. And after that, I felt like it looked like a holiday sweater. And finally, the last sweater, which I feel like is the simplest and requires the least amount of material. You'll need a red sweater or t-shirt. We will be taping this, so make sure that it doesn't have to be stretched out too much to put on or wear. I'd recommend a bigger or baggy sweater. This is pretty straightforward and simple, but using masking tape, start taping parallel lines and then some perpendicular lines to create a brick-like pattern on the front and back of the sweater. If the lines overlap the neck hole or collar, just take a pair of scissors and cut around it. I did find it extremely annoying to have so many loose ends of the tape just hanging out and kind of, you know, peeling off here and there because I was using dollar store tape and we all know that's not very great. So I did go back in and re-tape the horizontal lines just to cover up all the loose ends, or as many as I could, and this actually helped a lot. For the back, I'm using black construction paper and tracing and cutting out a brick-shaped hole. And to attach it, I'm just using double-sided tape. You can choose to attach it after we've drawn/painted on it or before, depending on whatever, it's up to you. I was just gonna use some pencil crayons and not paint, so I didn't have to worry about it seeping through, and that's why I just decided to just tape it on beforehand. And then I'm using pencil crayons and crayons to draw on an evil-looking Santa peering out of the hole in the brick wall. And by the way, I mean no offense in this, you can use a snowman or reindeer that looks evil instead. It doesn't really matter. I'm just using Santa because I'm referencing this to the holiday song and lyrics that I'm going to be writing on the tape with a permanent marker. And then when you're satisfied, you are done with the sweater. Do you guys like my hat? Ho ho ho, it's Christmas! I'm Santa Claus! Just kidding, I look kind of creepy because it's kind of, the shadows are pretty dark. But anyways, if you guys made it to the end of the video, oh, that's kind of hard to talk. Please make sure you give me a big thumbs up if you did like this video. Also, let me know what type of videos you guys want to see in the future. And subscribe if you haven't, because I drop a video every single week. And I'll see you guys later. Bye-bye.